that is the plan. But again, if you want to make it double sure, no harm in shutting your video off. Totally respect that. Zoom fatigue is a real thing. So shall I start the recording, Florence?
Hey Jen, I just started it, so it should be on. So we're good. Yeah.
Fantastic. So greetings, everybody, from the Academic Advising and Career Center, which currently takes place in my home office, at least when I'm involved. So it's wonderful to have you here to talk about networking online. When we think about networking, I don't know about you, but I usually think of, a room full of strangers in suits, and finger food and name tags and, trying to meet people I don't know. And obviously that looks very different when we're talking about networking online. So what we're going to do today, and hopefully my slides will advance for you, there we go, is why and how to network. Just very briefly, we're going to talk about how to create your own opportunities through a strategy called informational interviewing. We're going to talk about setting up your space for success. Fingers crossed. Technology always makes things adds a layer of complication. So hopefully these strategies will help. And we're going to talk about how to effectively participate in networking events that are happening online, including how to make a positive impression. The other thing we're going to talk about is follow up, because following up is a really helpful way to make a positive impression after the event. So in just a moment, we're going to put you in breakout rooms, so you'll actually get a chance to meet a few people. Hopefully you were ready for that. If you would rather not engage with your fellow group mates, just tell them so. That's okay. Just say, I'm not up for this today. That's okay. Hopefully some of you will be up for a little bit of a chat though. And your goal in your breakout room is to find something in common with each person in your breakout room. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly the same thing in every breakout room. That's okay. But your goal is to find something in common, maybe in pairs, right? So maybe I have a cat and Florence has a cat, right? So that would be something in common. But then Florence and Justine don't have that. They have a love for Thai food. Yeah, okay, so that you could create a little chain, okay? So I'm going to create rooms so that there should be about 4 or 5 people in each room. Hopefully in 5 minutes, 4 or 5 people can find connections, all right? So here you go. That's your goal, find something in common with everybody, and it is okay to say to your group, that's allowed, especially if you've been on Zoom a lot. So here we go. Please accept your invitation to a breakout room and find something in common with the people you meet there. You have 5 minutes. All right. So thanks everybody for your engagement in that activity. And typically when I run this, unfortunately, because there's so many rooms, I didn't have a chance to ask every group, but typically finding something in common happens pretty quickly when I have run this activity, and you can find something pretty quickly. I'm not 100% sure what clues human brains use. Maybe those of you who are studying neuroscience can tell me. I'm not sure what clues we use to identify what it is that we think we might have in common, but it usually happens pretty quickly, which is pretty cool. So thanks everybody. So the real world connection here is that we can do this. We can do this. We do this all the time. We do this with our classmates in a classroom when we're in a classroom. We can do this in an online setting as well. When we have opportunities to actually communicate with each other, we can find these things. And so what we're going to talk about is creating opportunities to actually be interacting with people to find those things in common, because that's how we build relationships. But first, throw this in the chat box, please. What are some thoughts and feelings you have about networking, good or bad? What are some things that you have? And I will read them out for the sake of the video, but I won't use your name, I promise. What are some thoughts and feelings you have about networking? Scary, intimidating, new people equals scary, can feel stiff, exciting, Intimidating, heck, I do it all the time. That's true. Exciting. Thank you for including exciting, because actually feeling scared, those of you who are in biology, feeling scared and feeling excited are the exact same body response. It's the exact same body response. The difference is how we think about it. Okay, so the difference between exciting and scary is actually just cognition. It's how we think about it. Networking can be uncomfortable, confusing, making a great first impression. Absolutely. Can feel awkward. Yeah. First impressions happen very quickly. Yeah, 10, 20 seconds. And often someone has already formed an opinion about you on very little information. It's tough. Hard to start a conversation. Well, that's why we spent the time to figure out how quickly you can find something in common with a random group of people. So that's good. So when we talk about networking, I like to focus on the relationship piece, and that's my bias, but I feel like it's easier to think about networking when I think about the people who I'm talking to as potential new friends, work friends, maybe not BFFs, maybe not people I'm going to know forever, but I'm less scared personally. Again, it's all about how you think about it. I'm less scared personally if I think about the people I'm talking to as my future coworkers. These are people that I'm hoping I'm going to work with one day, or I think I might want to work with one day. You're definitely going to meet more people than you'll ever develop lasting relationships with in your life, and that's okay. Not everyone needs to be, a good friend. And it's helpful to know people. You don't need to know everyone, but it is helpful to know some people in your field, because you will develop, as you go forward in your career, a reputation. And so it's not just about who you know, but it's also about who knows you, who has met you, who has had an opportunity to have a conversation with you and remember you for something positive. I do apologize. I just made a rookie mistake and my cell phone was not silent. Now it is. So let's talk about why to build a network. There are lots of reasons. Some of the biggest ones are that 80% of work is not broadly advertised. And why wouldn't jobs be advertised, right? That doesn't make any sense. Why are there all these job boards out there? Why does LinkedIn advertise all over the place that they have a job board? Why does Indeed have YouTube commercials advertising to recruiters? Well, 80% up to 80% of work is not advertised because managers prefer to hire people they know, or people who know the people that they know, if that makes any sense. So they like a recommendation. Why do we like recommendations? Throw that in the chat. Why do we like recommendations for anything? For restaurants, for buying a car, for clothes? Why do we like recommendations? It's comfortable. That's a really good point. I think I have some business students in here. You got it right away. Less risk. Yes, that is the answer. We have definitely convenience. It's reassuring, which is kind of like saying it's less risk. It's familiar. You know what to expect. Yeah, it's actually a risk management strategy, because Florence, you can just shake your head or nod, Florence, you would never recommend someone to me who you thought was going to be a bad coworker, would you? You would recommend that? Yeah, exactly. No, you wouldn't. Exactly. You would never recommend anyone who you thought was going to be a bad coworker, because then your reputation is on the line, right? So managers often prefer to hire people who they've already met, or who are trusted by people who they've met, because we believe that I like what someone's here. It's like getting a second opinion, I feel like I can trust this person way more if they've been recommended to me, if I already know them. And so in terms of networking, one of the easiest things to do is to start with people you know, because you have friends and family. Your friends have family. Your family have friends. Okay. So Florence sent out a handout to everybody. Hopefully you have this Word document. I would actually like to encourage you to open it up in the background. I'm totally okay with people multitasking. I would like to encourage you to open up this Microsoft Word document in the background and actually start filling in this section here on people that you know who you might be able to least get some friendly practice with networking with, but people who might actually be able to give you some coaching and maybe even to be that recommendation to an organization. So feel free to start working on that while we're talking. Okay, I'm going to encourage you to multitask so that we can keep going. Yes, Florence says brainstorm with the person beside you. Unfortunately, there is no person beside you, so we're going to skip that. We're actually going to skip that for now. But I would encourage you again to multitask. Feel free to flip back and forth and start working on that list as we talk. Now, those people may not have jobs to introduce you to, but certainly everybody has information. So later on, we're going to talk about a very cool networking strategy which works really well online, which is called information interviewing. But again, feel free to throw people onto your list as we start thinking. So another way to network, besides starting with the people you know already, is to meet new people, right? So how am I going to meet new people? One way to do that is to find experiences. So many of you are probably in a co-op program. Many of you have probably volunteered. Of course, once COVID is under control, I would encourage you to seek out internships and training programs in your field. What is an internship? An internship is a learning opportunity, right? It's usually a short-term, 1 semester or 1 year part-time kind of opportunity where you actually get to experience a field. You can also do some strategic volunteering in your field, especially when it comes to research, because that will help you to build a network. And how do you find opportunities? What good are these opportunities? You find opportunities to talk with people and ask questions. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into information interviews. How do you find these volunteer opportunities? That is something that I forgot to put on this slide. One easy way to do that is to look in the Career Learning Network. Maybe I can trouble Florence to throw that in the chat box. The Career Learning Network, clnx.utoronto.ca for the benefit of the video. CLNX is a platform where anyone in the university who's hiring either a paid job or a volunteer job is more than welcome to post it. So I do encourage you, if you're interested in getting engaged at the university, to look there. But in terms of other kinds of organizations, Volunteer Toronto, I think it's .com, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But if you Google Volunteer Toronto, there are listings there for community organizations. Of course, if you're interested in .ca, thank you, volunteertoronto.ca. And of course, if there's a specific organization where you want to volunteer, you know what, there's nothing wrong with sending an email. And we're going to look at a nice sample email in a few minutes. Another great way to meet people is to get familiar with the professional associations in your field of study, in your field of work, and engage with them, because they're organizing events and conferences that students and grads can go to. And when you're a helper or a volunteer at an event or conference, there are 3 advantages that you have over anyone else who's attending the conference. First, when you're wearing that volunteer badge at an in-person conference or online, sometimes these online conferences, people will have badges in their space, kind of showing you the empty space around me. Sometimes people will have a badge that shows who they are. You have every reason to talk to people. In fact, you have to talk to people because you're there to help, right? Especially if you're labeled as a volunteer, right? You have every reason to talk to people. Second, you automatically know someone who will show you around and introduce you to a few people. And that's the volunteer coordinator for the conference or the event, right? So that person's going to introduce, hey, this is Florence, and she's our assistant today, and she's going to take care of you. Ta-da, you've just had an intro, and you can get chatting with the person you were just introduced to. And you can often get in for cheap or even free if you're volunteering. And I know when I was a student, I never had any spare money. So that's another great advantage to volunteering at professional development or a conference or something like that in the field of work that you're interested in engaging in. And a lot of these professional associations are continuing, at least I will say in my field. So I work in human services, my background is psychology. And in psychology, I mean, we all tripped a little bit in March and April and May, and conferences didn't necessarily happen then. But for this semester and the summer, everybody's just carrying forward, trying to pretend everything's a little bit normal, Also because we miss each other. So you'll find if you attend a conference, you'll see people going, oh, it's so nice to see you, and hugging each other. And it's because we see each other every year at these events. And honestly, I do miss my coworkers. So I actually have an online conference next week. And what I'm looking forward to the most are the networking events. Very excited. So someone's asking, where is that Word document? Florence, maybe you could throw it into the chat, because I do believe we can share files if we enabled that permission. If we did not, it should be in the email that you got from Florence. All right. So let's talk about information interviewing, which I have labeled creating opportunities. So information interviewing is an opportunity that you create for yourself to pick the brain of someone who's doing work that's of interest to you. And I hope you know what I mean by picking their brain. Obviously, I don't mean literally, picking your brain. I mean asking questions and interviewing somebody. So an information interview is an interview where you're asking the questions instead of the more traditional way where someone's asking you all the questions. I just Google for good guides. So for example, I actually happen to really like the Berkeley University guide, and I've included the link in the PowerPoint, which you should have received in your U of T email. So an information interview is an opportunity that you create to ask someone questions who obviously you would talk to someone who's doing work that you're interested in doing, or who works for a company that you're interested in working for. There are a few great reasons that I've highlighted here. There are many more, but one of them is, first of all, to help build a network of contacts in your field of interest, so that when those job opportunities that need a recommendation, right? As we said, managers are risk averse, right? They would rather hire someone who's probably familiar, someone who's probably trusted. It's a great opportunity to start slowly building that network of contacts in your field of interest that maybe they'll think of you. Especially, we're not going to get into LinkedIn today, but I would encourage everyone to start thinking about building a LinkedIn profile, because it seems like it's here to stay for a while. I wasn't 100% sure when LinkedIn started, like 20 years ago or so, that it was going to last, but it really has. And so I suspect it's going to be here for a while longer, because I don't see anything else on the horizon that seems set up to replace it. But I would encourage you to think about developing a profile, so that when you have an information interview with someone, you can say, hey, and could we stay connected on LinkedIn? I can't tell you how many times I have sort of just like put out in my network, because I only accept people I know, that I've put out in my network, hey, like I have this contract, 6 months or a year of work. Do you know anyone who would be interested? Right? And then recommendations that come back to me, or even people who write me back and say, actually, Jen, I'm not working right now. I'd be really interested. Like that has been very fruitful in my life as a career counselor and a manager. Actually, I don't think I mentioned I'm the manager of the career services at AECC. So I really valued my LinkedIn network as an example. So I do encourage everyone just to start developing it, on the understanding that you're not going to have lots to put in there yet, because you're still a student, and that's okay. But to think about getting it going, just for keeping track of your network. It's a really great way to keep track of people. Another great reason to do information interviews is the opportunity to develop lingo. Every industry has lingo or jargon or turns of phrase, vocabulary that nobody else uses. And so I would like to strongly encourage you to listen for that jargon when you're doing an information interview. A great question to ask in an information interview is about what trends that person is seeing. Trends in an industry are sometimes a little harder to see from outside, and you're not in an industry yet. So it's really fruitful a lot of the time to talk to somebody who is actually involved in the industry. They can sort of see where it's going and see what's happening. And then, of course, sometimes you get hints on opportunities there, right? So, for example, in the auto industry, there's a resurgence of activity at the Oshawa GM plant. Who knew, right? So people who sold their houses in Oshawa because it looked like the industry had collapsed there completely are probably kicking themselves because not all the jobs are coming back. A few jobs are coming back. And anyone who had a heads up about, they might want to build electric trucks there, hopefully, stayed put and found a way to weather the financial storm. Someone is actually asking in the chat, and thank you for asking, what is lingo? And my favorite explanation there is fancy language. Thank you for that one. Yes, lingo is fancy language. Exactly. That's often very industry specific. So a great example for chemistry and biology students in the room might be titration. You know what titration is, but the sociology students in the room or the psychology students like me would say, is that like elevation? Titration? You know, we don't know what that is. So every field has its very specific lingo. And then finally, the last great reason that I wanted to highlight for doing information interviews is the opportunity to get a reality check. So someone says they're a life science student, they don't know what it is either. Google it. But I'll spell it in the chat box in case you want to Google it, in case it's going to bug you. Titration. So it's an opportunity to get a reality check about what a field of work is actually like. And I'll share an example. Something that I'll often tell students who are interested in a career in accounting, especially students who are interested in the big four accounting firms. And if you're interested in accounting, oh, thanks, Florence, for the titration definition. So if you are interested in accounting and working for the big four, you should know that there are 2 times a year where you will work like 80-hour work weeks. That's a lot of hours every day, right? There are only 7 days in a week. So if you're working 80 hours, that means you're working about 12 hours every day, including Saturday and Sunday, right? And those 2 times a year are the most common year-end closings. So year-end closings are usually in April and December. Those are the most common times of year. And so if you're interested in doing accounting for one of the big four accounting firms, companies like, because someone's asking me, who are they? Companies like KPMG, oh, thank you, someone's giving me a list. KPMG, Deloitte, PwC, and EY, which used to be Ernst & Young. Now they're just their letters, EY. So 80 hours a week. Now it's only twice a year, but for about a period of about 2 weeks at each of those times of year, you're going to be tired, right? So that's just something to think about in terms of managing your energy. If you're the kind of person who is intimidated by the idea of working 80 hours in a week, maybe you know that your energy level is just not that kind of energy level, maybe you want to consider accounting in another setting. If you don't think you can handle those kinds of periods, right? Or it's something to talk to people about, like how do you manage an 80-hour work week 2 times a year that this happens. So again, reality checks often really, really helpful. The other thing that I like about, the fourth thing that I really like about information interviews is they're great if you're shy. So I don't know about you, but even I'm a little bit intimidated about those traditional networking events, which you've probably seen in movies, right? Like I said, where everyone's in a suit and everyone's got a name tag on and it's a room full of strangers, you know, like you really don't know anybody and you're expected to juggle a drink and food and shake hands. Like we only have 2 hands. How are you supposed to do this, right? So information interviews are a great networking strategy for folks who are intimidated by that room. And at this point, what I'd like to do is share with you that U of T is trying to help you do information interviews. We're not just sending you out in the world to try to figure this out on your own. We actually have a platform that we're using to try to help you connect. And it's called 10,000 Coffees. And we're going to take a look at my profile right now. First, what is it? 10,000 Coffees is a social media platform full of professionals who are wanting to meet you. So it's not like you're even bugging anybody that you reach out to through 10,000 Coffees. The only reason anyone has a profile on 10,000 Coffees is they want to talk to you. They want to be helpful. And in particular, there are a lot of profiles on 10,000 Coffees who are U of T alumni because we have a hub. They're organized in hubs. So let me show you the hub. Now, Florence, can you see my web browser? Let me make sure I did. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So this is, I'm going to have to close the chat window, folks. Sorry. So this is what the U of T hub looks like. So when you log in, you've got these 4 things here: intros, members, office hours, news. Office hours are a lot of fun. Office hours are events and activities organized by the Downtown Career Center with our blessing. And the alumni office will sometimes be engaged here. So for example, coming up later this week, Dave Wilkin, who is the founder and CEO of 10,000 Coffees, is hosting on Olympian. Wow. So if you ever want to talk to an Olympian or an entrepreneur, That could be a fun talk. All right. So U of T hosts these as well for you, and we encourage you to join us. There are also useful articles under news. Technically, these aren't all news, in all honesty. Sometimes they're just like how to use 10,000 copies, again, explaining what is an office hour, and so on. So it's not exactly news, but you'll find some useful things in that section. So let's take a look at the members. Let's see who's here. So right now, there are 9,200 members of the U of T 10,000 Coffees Hub. And I would like to share that other schools are using 10,000 Coffees. So for example, I'm also a McGill grad, so I'm also a member of the McGill Hub. I can also share that there are private companies that are using the 10,000 Coffees platform. So for example, I believe TD Bank has started using 10,000 Coffees as a platform for some of the professional development for their staff, which means those professionals are also in this system. So right now we're just looking at the U of T people, but there are ways also to add to your network, and you'll have the opportunity to find those people as well. So, but right now there are 9,200 people in the U of T network. Now these people include both alumni, professionals, and yourselves, right? So here we have experienced people and less experienced people. You will one day be an experienced person. That's part of how we build this, right? It was once you finish your degree and launch your career, then hopefully you'll still be here and still willing to share what you've learned along the way with the next generation, right? Like paying it, it's kind of like paying it forward, right? And so let's say I am interested in, I wonder if anybody's got titration in their profile. Let me just see. 2 people have titration in their profile. All right. So we have a doctor of pharmacy student. Now she's labeled as a student. She may have graduated. So we're going to look more closely. And here we actually do honestly have someone who is a recent grad. That's very exciting. By the way, Florence, before we post this video, I do want to fuzz these names out. I forgot to mention that. So we do want to fuzz these names out because they did not give me permission to broadcast them in the video. But that is very, very exciting that we can actually look up titration and find 2 people. So what I'm going to do is show you my profile, again, because we didn't have permission to look at anyone else's, but I'll show you my profile. So this is what you'll see when you click on someone's profile, okay? So you're going to see a little bit about me. You're going to get my title. You can see my LinkedIn profile, which we can take a look at a little bit later as well. You're going to see where I am. What else are you going to see? You can see my work. You can see my engagement. You can see a little bit of a short bio that I put there. Yeah, you've got my blurb about me. And this is a new thing actually that I have to add. And I was going to add it before we talked. And then I said, no, I should show you how to do this. So this is a new thing that 10,000 Coffees added, which was icebreakers. So this is my recommendation for if you want to reach out to me, cool. Here's something, again, like our first exercise, finding things in common. Here's something that we can do. Okay, so I'm going to add an icebreaker. All right, so when you reach out to me, I'd love you to tell me more about your career plans and how I might help you to develop them. I'm really nerdy. I really love career counseling. All right. And there are lots of options, but I'm just going to go with the default here. My superpower at work is my endless supply of energy and enthusiasm. You might have noticed I'm very extroverted. And so that's the one thing everyone will usually notice about me. And a work accomplishment that I'm most proud of, gosh, there's so many, and they're mostly related to my team, actually. So I'm going to say a work accomplishment I'm proud of is the amazing work done by my fabulous team members, which include Florence and Adrian. So thank you. So obviously then I'm saying, talk to me about team, right? Team is something I'm interested in. Talk to me about what you're excited about. Talk to me about your career plans when you reach out to me. I mean, someone could ask me about anything. There's nothing stopping anyone. But those are things that I strongly encourage. Okay, so that's what you'll see when you look at someone's profile, roughly speaking. It might look a little bit different, but again, I don't have permission to show you anyone else's profile. So if we go back to the hub, there's something else I want to show you, which is introductions. And for new people like you, This is gold, 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 gold. And I would like to encourage you to do this when you're in exploration mode. So every so often, I think it's about once a month, the 10,000 Coffees system can introduce you to someone. So I have introduced, it's every 4 weeks, it's once a month. And so I'm going to have to fuzz these people out. Sorry, Florence, to give you more work too. But what I can do is turn this on, and that means every 4 weeks, the 10,000 Coffees system will go through the profiles, go through my profile, go through everyone else's profile, and match me, like Match.com, match me with somebody who I might have something in common with, someone that I might like to talk to. And I would like to share a cool story. So one of the coolest things, one of the coolest introductions that I ever had was from someone who, I kid you not, had sent me an email 1 week before. Just 1 week before. She had sent me an email separately from this hub. And then 1 week later, it did its magic and matched us. So I'm a believer that whatever it's doing in the background, it's probably going to find you some interesting people, okay? Because it actually came up with someone who naturally wanted to talk to me anyway, which I thought was really cool. The other platform that you can use is LinkedIn. This is my LinkedIn account here, so we don't have to fuzz any of this out, Florence. I'm not going to look up too many. I should say that we may have to fuzz some names out. I have a lot of connections. A lot of connections, and I can say I have 5 more pending. I only take people I know, though. I only take people I've met, who I've worked with, and U of T students, I will put that out there. When you're close to graduating, I will also gladly take you on my LinkedIn profile. I usually ask you to wait till you're graduating, because usually your profile is still in development until then. So it's not an advantage to you to be connected to me until closer to your graduation. But I do welcome connections when you're close to graduating. This number will probably jump now. What I wanted to show you is how cool it can be to find stuff on here. So career development is the broad, nerdy field that I participate in. If you look it up, so LinkedIn just has this one search bar, okay? LinkedIn will search all these different things: people, jobs, groups, companies, schools, posts, events. I'm going to start with groups. So LinkedIn groups are actually a really great way to find job ads, because it's free to post them here. You probably don't know this unless you're interested in HR. It actually costs a company to post a job in the job section at LinkedIn. But if you just throw it in a group, they can't stop you. So groups are actually a good way to find job ads. It's also a good way to meet people, to find connections. So for example, if I open up the National Career Development Association, and Florence, thank you for managing the chat. I can see it lighting up, but I'm struggling to have it on my screen at the same time. The National Career Development Association is an American association, but they still got good, useful things to share with us. And so I'm a member of that group. And as you can see, people are posting some kind of article. This should probably have a description like this one does. So people post interesting opinions. People will post interesting projections. I always like reading these. The 20 fastest growing jobs. Ooh, I'm always curious about those. And so this is how I stay on top of my field. When you graduate, I don't know if Florence would agree with me or not, but when you graduate, one of the hardest things to do is to actually stay on top of what's new in your field, because you don't have any professors feeding it to you anymore. You have to kind of go out and find it, and it's not that easy. And I love LinkedIn groups for this. And just like on Facebook, if you're a Facebook user, or Instagram, it will populate some of these things into your feeds, into your regular feed. So a lot of these things, sorry, you can't see what I'm pointing at. A lot of these things will show up in my main feed, actually. So once you join a group, the algorithm in LinkedIn will actually push some of this stuff into your feed. And let's say I'm very interested in this person. We're gonna have to fuzz out her name because I don't have permission for this. Let's say I'm excited that she shared this article. You know, you're interested in job trends. I'm interested in job trends. And I noticed that she's a second degree connection. Now, just so you know, in terms of LinkedIn lingo, I'll teach you some LinkedIn jargon. That means she and I do not know each other, but we know someone in common. Okay, so if you just picture see my two fingers there, like there's someone in between who can connect us, okay? If I wanted to meet her, or in all honesty, I could just click on her name, check out her bio. Again, we're gonna have to fuzz all this out. I can click on her name, check out her bio, and I can even send her a message. I don't think I have, yeah, I don't pay for LinkedIn. But what I can do is I can click the connect button, even if I don't really necessarily want to connect. What I can do is click the connect button and always add a note, always add a personal note. So I can say, you know, hi, I saw your article. I saw the article you posted in NCDA. I thought it was great. Would love to connect, would love to speak with you. And we're about to look at an example of how to ask for an information interview, but here's a quick preview. Would love to speak with you about your work at whatever organization she works for. I would have to check. Can we speak for a few minutes on Zoom sometime in the next little while? Obviously, spell checking is better. There you go. So groups, for example, are a great way to find people who you might not even know, but they posted something that's exciting. Again, you have something in common. Okay, they posted something that they're excited about, you're excited about. Can we talk about it? And again, are they going to be your BFF? Probably not. But are you probably going to run into each other over the course of your life? Of course, over the course of your career? Yeah, you probably will. Okay. So back to presentation. Sorry, that was LinkedIn. Jump the gun. All right. When you are contacting people, be concise, which means be brief. So when you're asking someone about volunteering or doing an information interview with you, you're going to want to stick to just a few highlights, things like who you are, things like how you got their contact information, and then what it is you want to do or what it is you want to know. So let's take a look at some introductions. So I'm just going back to that handout for today, and I will zoom in because we're actually going to look at this very quickly together. All right. So again, you may find this easier to read if you actually have it on your computer in front of you. I'm going to read it out very painfully quickly for the benefit of folks who prefer not to multitask. And my question for you is, sorry, I should jump back to my PowerPoint slide. My question for you is, which email would you respond to if you were the recipient? Okay, which one would you rather receive? Example 1, to whom it may concern. I recently graduated from U of T with a degree in management and am interested in learning more about the field of human resources. I know that your company has an excellent reputation in the business world, so I'm writing to see if there is someone there who might be able to meet with me briefly to answer some of my questions. You can reach me at this number. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, Sydney Smith. Polite. There's a typo. Wrong there. All right, sample 2. Dear Ms. Davies, I'm going to insert my own name. Dear Ms. Davies, I'm a 4th year University of Toronto management student, and I'm interested in pursuing a career in human resources. As part of my research process, I'm hoping to speak with individuals currently working in the field to find out what it would be like to work in this area. I came across your name while I was doing some research at the university's Career Center, and I was hoping to speak with you briefly about your extensive experience in the human resources field. I understand that you're busy and appreciate any time or advice that you may be able to offer. I'll call you in a week to find out if there's a convenient time for you to meet with me. I look forward to speaking with you then. Sincerely, Sally Smith. Very confident. Hey, I'm going to call you if I don't hear back. Woo. I kind of like that confidence. That's me. So just throw it in the chat. Which letter would you prefer? Oh, people are already voting. Number 2. All right. So feedback on number 2. So direct. Yes, it's direct. It's clear, and yes, the call part doesn't really give them a chance to say no, so it is super confident. Some people like number 1. I will say number 1 has some advantages and that's that much tighter. Number 2 could be seen as a little bit wordy, but in terms of confidence and being very clear about exactly what this person wants from me, it's very clear. And yes, someone that's showing interest. Yeah, they're really showing interest and motivation. So typically number 2 is the better message. Yes, includes all the necessary information. That's also important, right? It's very specific. This is what I want from you. So feel free to use those examples. There's nothing super wrong with number 1. It's just not as interesting as number 2 and not as a specific request. All right, so let's talk a little bit about social media. I mentioned Instagram already, and you can definitely find people. Someone's asked, what's the difference between confidence and cockiness? I'm going to say it's in the eye of the beholder, so it's a fine line to walk, I would say. About social media, sorry, I mentioned Instagram. You can find people you might want to develop a relationship with on platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, also blogs. Believe it or not, blogs are still a thing. But I'm going to say that impression management is encouraged with what you put out there on the internet. I'm just going to say, you know, if you're trying to have a professional social media presence on the internet, because people will Google you. It's not an if you're going to be Googled, it's a when you're going to be Googled. Hopefully they're not just going to find cat videos. Okay. Hopefully what you're putting out there actually has some relevance to the kind of work that you're interested in, or just your academic studies for now. I mean, like right now, putting your chemistry experiment on Instagram, that's totally appropriate. If you're in chemistry or biology, go for it. That's totally cool. Interspersed with cat videos. Okay. But I really do encourage you to be thoughtful about what you're putting out there into the world, because people will find it. And I am a big social media fan. As I said, I have lots of people on LinkedIn, and it's very useful for me to keep track of my connections. Honestly, there are people who are very important to me who I would struggle to contact because LinkedIn is actually how I reach them. And I don't necessarily have their email address, and I definitely don't have their phone number, but yet I consider them very important professional contacts. So just keep that in mind. Keyword is professional. So the last thing I want to talk about, and I'm sorry we kept this to the end, but we will record it. So if anyone has to go at 4 o'clock, I promise we will make sure we include it. So let's start with a few suggestions for setting up your technology for success. The first one is to update your Zoom. So this morning, this is a screenshot from this morning. This morning, I updated my Zoom. How do you do that? You actually have to open up Zoom in your computer, not on the web browser. Like actually find the application, the software on your computer, click on your face, and one of the options will be check for updates. Zoom doesn't seem to update itself by itself, which is, Florence, no, it really doesn't, which is really obnoxious. And there's really great new features, which thankfully Florence is keeping on top of. So I do encourage you to get the most out of any meeting you're having on Zoom. Make sure that your software is as up to date as possible. And that's true for any platform you're using. If you're having a conversation on WhatsApp, make sure that it's updated. If you're having a conversation on Microsoft Teams, make sure that your web browsers are up to date so that you can use it. Or if you even have the Teams software downloaded, that's perfect. So just make sure everything's up to date. The next thing is to keep your background tidy or use an image. So I figured I'd share my own because this is really my background. And if anyone ever asks me about this thing, I will actually share that my grandmother made it. And I estimate there's probably about 1,000 hours of work in this particular thing that's hanging behind me. And that's why I use it. And it's hiding my storage. So my home office was never meant really to be regularly used as an office. That's my storage back there, but you can't really tell. So it looks nice, right? Thank you. Someone says it's a nice one. But if you don't have an option for a really good background, I would also encourage you to get familiar with what your options are in Zoom. I would encourage you to be a little more creative than going to San Francisco, which I have just done. I would encourage you to actually find something that's unique for you if you're uncomfortable with your background. But San Francisco is wonderful. So when traveling is safe again, I highly recommend it. So tidy up your reality or use an image. Everybody these days is very understanding, I think, at least in my community, of people using backgrounds because people have kids. Not everyone's home is intended for this. If you live in a studio apartment or a studio condo, I mean, your bed is right there, the bathroom's just right there. You're probably sitting at your kitchen counter. It's tough. So tidy reality or use a background image. Background images are just fine. Wi-Fi. Let's talk about your Wi-Fi. So if you have an information interview or a job interview coming up, I highly recommend that when you go to bed, that you reboot the modem at bedtime. Oh, I forgot about the topic. Florence is sharing some examples in the chat. I actually just Googled professional Zoom backgrounds and got all kinds of great stuff. So you could also just go download something somewhere if you want to. I forgot. Thank you, Florence, for reminding me I had an example. Sorry. So Wi-Fi. I highly recommend before a big event, reboot your modem at bedtime. Because you don't need it, you're going to sleep. And it clears what's called the cache or the memory. You may not realize, but your internet modem, which is the device that shares the internet through your home, actually does have a memory built in. And the easiest way to do it is unplug it, count to 10, plug it back in. It's always going to take a few minutes to restart. So that's why bedtime, once everyone else is in bed, is a good time to do it because no one's going to miss it. Another suggestion is to negotiate with others what they're doing on the Wi-Fi to ensure you have a reliable connection for your conversation. Because if someone in the next room is trying to stream a movie, while you're trying to have an interview or just do something else that's high video content, you are probably going to have a hard time and you're going to have some lag. So I highly recommend actually having a conversation with other people around you and ask them to either jack in if they can, like use the hard line coming out of the machine, or to just reduce what they're doing on the Wi-Fi for that time period that you're using it. Those were my top tech tips. If anyone else has top tech tips, feel free to throw them in the chat. And I'm going to go on to our last topic, which is making a positive impression. Never thought I'd do a workshop where I had to remind people to wear pants, but wear pants. Dress appropriately, of course, for any kind of interaction that you're going to have online. It's very important that you feel good with what you're wearing too. I don't know about you, I've been kind of slouchy the last number of months. Today I put on a collared shirt just for you. But I've been feeling kind of slouchy since March 2020 because I'm not at work. It feels different. So I encourage you to dress yourself up for the occasion. It will probably help you to smile, which is the next recommendation that I have. When we're nervous, we tend not to smile, but I do encourage you to do that because it does make a difference. It actually changes the sound of your voice. And everyone loves to talk to someone who's smiling. So if you can teach yourself to smile even when you're nervous, it will go a long way to making you a more engaging person. Position your camera so that it sort of looks like you're looking at people. I hope it mostly looks like I'm looking at you. Of course, I'm looking at my slides, which are just slightly below the camera level. And I'm actually going to point to show you the difference. So right now I'm pointing at the camera. Right now I'm pointing at the slide. So it's a really minor difference, but the smaller you can make that difference so that it really looks like you're looking at people, which I'm doing right now, it actually does feel a lot more like an in-person interaction, which can have benefits for again, relationship development. Slow down, which I've not been role modeling today, but especially if you're having a back and forth conversation where there can be lag and hitches, hiccups in the sound because of bandwidth and whatnot, I do encourage you to slow down what you're saying and really enunciate. Enunciate is do exactly what I just did there, like really go through each syllable in a word. And especially if you're using a complicated word, and leave empty space. It'll feel awkward because in an in-person conversation, there isn't the same technology barrier, but I will encourage you to leave empty space. Sometimes I often feel like I'm just staring, waiting, and there it is. Okay, see, it's just because of the lag. It feels weird, but we're all getting used to it. So just be patient. Everybody's accustomed to these funky things happening, and they'll forgive you for it. It's okay. You got to have way more patience when you're meeting people this way. And then finally, remove distractions. I admitted earlier I made a rookie mistake and forgot to silence this before we started. So make sure you silence your phone or just shut it right off. Save the battery. Silence your phone before you begin a conversation with someone, because just that way you're not tempted to go look at it, because with the little bleeps and things, it can be really distracting. And again, speaking of negotiation for the Wi-Fi, you may want to negotiate others for quiet in the background. Earlier today, my spouse was singing. And I made a point of telling him before this workshop started, dear, you have a lovely voice, but not between 3 and 4, please. And that's just one of those things. Again, our homes were for most of us were not intended to be used for all the various study and work and play and living kinds of activities that we're asking our homes to do right now. And so it's tricky, and it requires a little bit more thought and planning than we're accustomed to. So you have Homework, if you want to do it. In your handout, you have the instructions for a 30-second intro. It is useful to have a 30-second intro ready in case you meet someone, maybe at the end of an online event and you want to follow up. It's also a great starting point, right? Because most conversations when you're meeting, someone will start with, tell me about yourself. Also very common first interview question if you've had a job interview before. So it's always useful to have just sort of that 30-second, here's what I'm all about ready. We have a whole video on it. And in your handout, you had an example. Okay, so the second half of the first page is an example and a little space to encourage you to think about starting to prep yours. Because it's the kind of thing you could have handy when you're talking with someone. Because if you're not sharing screen like I'm doing right now, you don't know what I have on the monitor, right? I might have my 30-second pitch right there to make it easier for me to share it with someone if I'm nervous. So I do encourage you to develop something like that for yourself. And that's all I wanted to share today. 4 minutes overtime. I do apologize. ADNCC has great social media, so I do encourage you to follow us on social media so you get all the updates on all our fabulous events that my colleagues Florence and Adrian are organizing. Adrian, I don't know if you want to turn your video on and say hi, but we have all kinds of fantastic events, including the summer job networking tomorrow. There are still spaces, so please do sign up. It starts at 1 p.m. sharp. Am I correct, Adrian? 1 p.m. sharp?
The 12 o'clock entry is full right now, but 1 o'clock still has spaces available for 1 till 2.
Perfect. Okay, so if you already signed up for 12, show up at 12, but there's spaces at 1. And yes, you will get a link to this recording. And Adrian, you have people who are looking forward to seeing you. Is there a list of employers in CLNX, Adrian, of who's going to be there?
Yes, there is a list on CLNX of the 10 employers who will be there. And then if you register, you'll get the employer guide, which has more information emailed to you.
Perfect. Thank